Welcome to Unbinding. We're Josh and Wendy, two fellow travelers on this journey of waking up out of our religious paradigm. We're navigating religious trauma and healing our spiritual wounds. So if you're not yet feeling free, well, come join us in learning how to just be. Hello, welcome to Unbinding. I'm here with Josh today, and like I am every time we do Unbinding. And our topic today is the self I forgot, healing the wounds of self-abandonment. And I know in my practice, this is like one of the main core things that we deal with is reclaiming and learning how to even identify your own wounds and how you self-abandon. And I know Josh has been dealing with this in his own life and probably in his own practice with the people that he works with. But it's something that's dear to both of us. And we know that it is a core piece for us in being able to move on and identifying when it happens, why we do it, how it impacts us, and then some tips and tricks on how you can start reclaiming yourself and remember the self that you were taught to forget. How's that? What are your thoughts on this one, Josh?
There's a lot. There's a lot. Um, I really feel like, in my experience, it's been so much of discovering who I am after Mormonism, and in what ways were those labels. Well, I had so many labels and beliefs about myself that came from my upbringing that I just thought were me. And so the self abandon, it felt like I abandoned, well, I don't know that I abandoned it. It seemed like it started at such a young age that it was just programmed on how to be.
Yeah.
So I don't have like a moment where I forgot or I chose. It was just like, no, this is what you do as a good little Mormon kid.
Yeah. Yeah. For me too. That was in my family dynamics. Um, and I took this upon myself. Like I had an older brother, then I had a sister, and we were all like within 3 years. So I know my mom was so busy, and I just took it on myself, that martyr position. Well, I'm not going to bother my mom. I don't want to burden my mom. She seems so frustrated, and every time I ask for something, the energy she responds to me with is so uncomfortable for me. It's just better for me to go figure it out on my own. And so my needs don't matter. And it's kind of like I trained myself to do that, but I was also probably 3 or 4.
Hmm.
I didn't know how to do it the right way, or it was just a coping strategy that I used. But then it began to it was also something taught in church. It's not like we have a scripture on and the power and responsibility to self-abandon. It's
Right.
not something direct that we're told to do. But it is a subtle and covert message that so many of us receive, that your needs don't matter. Everyone else's needs are more important than yours. And the more that you can deny yourself your needs, the closer to God you'll become. And also, and this is the big one, that sacrifice was love.
Mm.
Denying myself what I want or need is a form of love
Hmm.
for other people, even though it was a form of self betrayal to me, self abandonment to me. And it's almost like I taught myself how to gaslight myself about my own needs. And whether it was intentional or unintentional, doesn't matter. It happened. So I'm not here to blame the church, but I am here to kind of break open this idea that there's something virtuous and benevolent about denying yourself access to what it is you want and what you need, because it shuts down that vibrant, creative dreamer that's inside of us at a very young age. And it almost like denies us access to our own dreams and to our own brilliance and to our own what we've come here to share with the world, our own gifts.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot coming up as you shared that. And I want to a big part of this podcast is that we want to do, Wendy and I, is really bring the body into each episode. And so what that means is if you're in a place where you're listening, where you can either close down the eyes or just kind of tune in to what the body is doing, and it can be like a bracing, it can be a shortening of breath as we discuss any of this. And so the invitation is just to notice what's happening inside the body as we talk about these things. And the body will indicate if it was like, oh, that didn't impact me, or this big tightening where it's like, oh, hell yeah, that was my experience. And so as you were sharing all that, I could feel around my heart there was this constriction and this tightening and discomfort, really uncomfortable. So thank you.
You're welcome for making you uncomfortable and tight. Actually, those become the directions and pathway. We were just talking about that before we hopped on to recording about follow the pathway of fear.
Yeah.
Um, I would say there may also be a defense. Like you either know that you don't self-abandon anymore, you know that you can have what you want. You're very vocal about sharing your needs and pursuing what you want in life. And so it might not be trapped in the body. Or like you said, there's a tightness. You're like, I know that I've done this. I know I follow this pattern. And then there's this other thing that happens, and it's like so thick
Mm,
that we get defensive and say, that's
hmm.
bullshit.
Hmm.
We're like that. That's not even a thing. Or that didn't happen to me. Or you're being ultra sensitive. There's like a sense of defense that doesn't even want to let you into that gate because there is so much self-abandoning. And like the brain doesn't know how to exist on a different plane than to continuously self-abandon.
Can I share um, a pattern that I
Yeah.
discovered? It was a few weeks ago, and it applies to this. And so I think this will be useful as an example that it's not that it can be really nuanced, and you wouldn't even call it that until you look a little deeper. So
Mhm.
for me, I've been very introspective around because I'll hear like these people saying, follow your dreams, go after your dreams. And I'm tuning in and I'm like, why the hell don't I have any dreams?
Yep.
And I was like, what is here? And so I started journaling. I used ChatGPT. I was like, help me, ask me some good questions so I can discover. And I realized what I was raised into was to listen for God's will.
Hmm.
And then I would pray and I was like, what's God's will? What does God want me to do? And it was always outside of me. And so I abandoned myself in that way, but I wouldn't have used those words.
Right.
But I would pray and I'd be like, and I would wait. And it was this very docile, like victim, like I'm just a rag doll and God's gonna tell me what to do. And as soon as I get because he would tell Nephi to go kill Laban, he would tell
Yep.
King Benjamin, like they were receiving God's will very clearly, or an angel would show up and it would be like, do this, and I was like, why am I not getting any direction? So I
Hmm.
would pray and pray and pray, study harder, go to the temple more, and then, but the guidance wouldn't come. And so then I thought it was me,
Right.
that I was sinning, I wasn't worthy, or I didn't know how to listen, or so this self-judgment, this shame would kick in of it's got to be me. There's no because I never had the concept that the system that I was born into might be flawed. It was always aimed inwards. So then I left the church, 6 years ago now, and I'm still waiting for God's will. I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself. Like what? So that's a way that I was programmed out of my own knowing, which by doing so abandoned myself.
Mhm. That's a
So Wendy,
perfect
tell me what to do. I'm waiting for somebody outside of me to give me directions. Now I need it from you.
It's almost like, let's talk about it. I can identify the problem very well. Um, and I'll tell a couple of stories just to demonstrate how it happens, and then we can talk about the ways that have helped us to stop the self-abandoning. Because it's really not until you can recognize it and you can heal it. Until um, it's revealed, it can't be healed, right?
Yep.
And so I just saw a video come through my feed, and this was an LDS influencer, and she said, and you could see it in her body language. She says, "Do I believe in polygamy? No. Do I believe um, that a man should have multiple wives? No, it feels sick in every part of my body." And these were her words, like, especially in my gut.
Hmm.
And then she said, "But I know Joseph Smith was a prophet of God. And so I will trust in what the Lord was teaching him to do." And I went, what a clear example of how you have been taught to self-abandon.
Hmm.
Your body's informing you, it's letting you know this doesn't feel right, and you were taught to shut it off because Joseph Smith is a prophet. And once you get an impression that Joseph Smith is a prophet, and we can talk about how that is, pushed into us, that everybody around you believes he was a prophet. So you're the one that's wrong if you don't have that impression. So the suggestology is so thick that we just acknowledge, well, he has to be a prophet. But once you believe he's a prophet and you believe the Book of Mormon's true, whatever else is in the church, whatever doctrines are delivered, they now become your belief system. Because if you don't believe in this piece, that means you don't believe in Joseph Smith. If you don't believe in this piece, that means you don't believe in the Book of Mormon. So once you identify Joseph Smith as someone who might not be who we've been told he was, once you pull that out, it's like everything starts to collapse and your trust has been broken. So rather than go deeper into that, I just wanted to give an example of how this girl was beautifully and clearly identifying this. But to people who are still in the church, they'll be like affirming, yeah, me too.
Hmm.
I have those sick feelings inside too. But I also know Joseph Smith was a prophet. And so I'll be faithful like you. But once you have this all broke open for you, you go, oh my gosh, that's exactly how it happened. I disregard my feelings, I disregard my body, and I just map onto what I've been told is true, and I dig my heels in. And if this is true, then everything else, whether it's rational, reasonable, or logical, it doesn't matter because Joseph Smith is a prophet. And if I hold tight into this idea, I will be with my family in the next life, and I will be with God, and I will have God's favor, and God will work with me. And so, by the way, while we're talking about this, you sent me something the other day, the Louisiana thing. I think this like goes really good with that, with what we're talking about.
Indiana.
Indiana, Louisiana, one of those Annas.
Um, yeah.
But if you can read that in a minute, 'cause I have another one that just happened with the client yesterday, and I'll actually just tell my own story because one, I want to keep her anonymous. Not that I would tell her name, but because it happened to me too, and it's probably the first time that I recognized when I self-abandoned. Although I was taught to self-abandon since I was tiny, This is the one where I consciously can remember it viscerally in my body. And that was, I was 18 years old. I was engaged to be married. I was going through the temple. There was no temple prep time, no temple prep class for me to attend at that time. And this was in 1988 before they made the changes. And so when I'm in there, they're doing the action thing to your neck and to your gut, and we're wearing these weird robes. Nobody told me anything. And now I remember my nervous system is like lit. I am like, what is going on right now? I don't like this. I don't like people touching me when I don't want to be touched. Where are they going to touch me next? What is happening? And I'm just looking at all these foreign people, but there's my mom and my aunt, and they're just nodding in approval. I'm so whispering, of course. We're so proud of you. And how are you doing? They're expecting me to be so excited about this, and I'm not. You should be excited to go to the house of the Lord and to receive your covenants and your endowments and your new name. But inside my body, I am not okay. I'm not okay. When we get in the circle and we start doing things, I am not okay looking over at my fiance at some weird hat he's wearing. I am not okay covering my face with a veil. I'm not okay. But I've been trained to dismiss all of that in lieu of obedience and pleasing my parents and my leaders. And this is the pathway. The covenant pathway is the only true joy, the only pathway to happiness. And so this conflict, I just soothe it down
Mm,
and I just relax until eventually I learn to love the temple,
mm,
until it all collapsed. And then I went to the temple with my eyes wide open. And I went a couple times when I'm like, none of this is real, none of this is true. And I was shocked, literally shocked at what I had agreed to.
mm,
That at my more mature and more evolved self was going, this is not okay. This does not feel right. And this is not where I am supposed to be. And it was it didn't feel like the devil.
mm,
It didn't feel like Satan was tempting me. It felt like another source saying, this is the answer to the questions that you have been asking for a long time. And the answer is it's not true. And then I left, took off my garments, and I felt free and I felt connected,
mm,
directly connected, probably for the first time in my life. I felt like I had a direct connection to that divine love that I have been craving my whole life. Who knew it would be by leaving?
mm.
I didn't know that because everything was telling me to just do the thing more and more and more and more, and it'll finally happen for you. It didn't. So thanks for letting me share my story on that one.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I think it's really rich with information what you shared. So you're in the temple, you're looking around, your body's saying, "What the hell is this?" What would have happened if you would have raised your hand and said, "I'm checking in with my body, and this is a hell no for me." Like what? Just talk us through. Like what? Why couldn't you or didn't you do that?
That is a great question because they do ask you if this is not what you want to go through.
Mm,
Um, this is your window of opportunity to leave. I have never once seen somebody leave. Never once. Who is going to get up and make a scene by leaving when the entire room would be like, they don't want to receive their endowments? They don't want to receive their covenants? That is too much social pressure on one person. But to answer your question, there is no space for me to raise my hand and say, this is not resonating with me. I'm not on board with that. There's no room for that.
So they give you a way out, but they don't tell you what's about to unfold. There's not clarity, there's not information, there's just, do you want to look silly and go against the like the peer pressure, right? There's so many studies with around psychology of where they've set up, I can't remember the details, but there's like research on somebody in an office, like a waiting room. They're waiting to go into a doctor, and I can't remember the story, but they were studying to see if the person would betray what they were seeing to speak their truth or go along with everyone else was saying, no,
True.
that's not happening, that's not happening, that's not happening. And so they started to doubt themselves. And so it's built into like human nature, and then it's manipulated inside the temple to coerce and through control.
Well, and so let's like identify some of the things that are said to us as we're growing up. You don't want to risk apostasy. You don't want to risk losing the spirit. You will be deceived if you don't follow along with it. And this is where they say you always have a choice. I hear that from members of the church. You always have a choice. No one's making you do that. But there is subtle coercion
Mm,
going on. If you leave, then you are an apostate. I mean, what a heavy conflictual word. Nobody wants to be known as an apostate among their peers. If you leave, it could only be because you are deceived. I don't want to be deceived. If you leave, imagine the humiliation and disconnection you're going to have with your family and with your peers and with your social group. Um, we must gather the lost sheep. So if I am not compliant with what's being taught me, then I'm lost. I'm the lost one.
mm,
If how about the terror among the wheat?
mm-hmm,
I'm the one that God is sifting out because he has no use for me anymore.
mm,
Or how about just the loss of the idea of a loss of faith? Sounds like such a deficit. And so, yes, we're always a choice, but that choice is like it's insulated
mm,
with all this narrative that you can choose out, but you're choosing wrong. You can choose out, but you will be destroyed pretty much. Because the only way you would not choose this plan of happiness is because of disastrous and dreadful things. And that is not faith. That is coercion. That is not freedom. That's manipulation. It's control. And once you can see it, you can't unsee it. And once you feel it in your body and you start to recognize the tightness that those narratives are offering, you start to realize what it feels like to be free.
mm,
And like I mentioned with the dragonfly, you're starting to sip the forbidden air
mm-hmm.
and you have to toggle in between the two, saying, is this really okay? Is this my path? And you are walking in the dark. And it's scary because you're told you're going the wrong way.
A couple more examples of how that coercion works was there's like my family goes back to Joseph Smith, the pioneers. You don't want to break the chain.
Yeah, you're responsible for keeping
Yeah.
the faith because
Yeah.
everybody else is depending on you.
Right. And so then you're like, you check in with yourself and you're like, well, that must be Satan. So I need to maintain the
Mhm.
chain back to Jesus. Don't sever the chain. And
Mhm.
I've dealt with a lot of this where when I left, there was this great fear that I let my my grandpa down,
Mm.
and that he was angry or sad or disappointed or something. And so I've had to wrestle with that guilt. And I've had, I have a friend who she has special gifts where she can see into the other side. She can see dead people. And so I was bringing that up to her, and she's like, "Well, your great grandpa's here, and he is so proud of you for choosing yourself and to breaking."
Mm.
He's like, "No, I'm grateful you broke the chain." And so that was a big thing for me to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, because think of all the responsibility that's placed on to you. I mean, if you're the one that breaks the chain, I remember the pressure even with my own family. You won't be with your family in the next life. And I think it's such an insidious narrative, an insidious idea to place, especially on a new mother. It didn't really matter to me when I was growing up and I was in seminary, but I had my first child at 20. And when I was nursing her and cuddling her and looking deep into the wisdom and the depth of her eternal gaze at me, that everything, her life depended on me as her mother, her nurturing, her protection, all of this was my responsibility. And it's almost like a Tetris game where all the doctrines started to go until I dug my heels in and said, I cannot mess this up.
Mm,
I cannot risk losing my children in the next life. I don't want any empty chairs at the table. And my kids will tell you, yeah, we heard that from our mom quite a few times. It was written, literally stenciled on the wall in our home, no empty chairs at the table. And that's why I became a mom with my hair on fire and very toxic
mm,
in trying to coerce my children into staying on the path because I was so afraid of losing them. And then I'm having all these questions and everything cracks open for me. And yes, my kids are older, they're all in their teen years at this point. And I said, I am not responsible for saving my family. I'm here to protect them and provide for them, but they are in charge of their own path. And if anything, I want to teach my children that they have the right to discover their own path. And how controlling of me to not let them explore that. And so to me, it's also insulated with that idea that you'll break the chain
mm-hmm,
and you'll be the one that is responsible for your children not having the covenants and the blessings of the Lord. What mother doesn't want that for her kids? And she certainly doesn't want to be responsible for the ones and be the one that ruins it for her family and her children. And so she continues to self-betray,
mm.
self-gaslight, and self-abandon.
Yeah, that's why this stuff is so hard to see,
Mm-hmm.
unpack, and to unravel because it's just woven into the culture.
Yeah.
And I do want to bring up the Indiana thing, and
Yes.
but I just wanted to mention that the amount of control that we're under, it goes back to the plan of salvation where there were two paths, two plans. One was Satan's, and he wanted to control everyone so that we could get back. But then what we were actually raised in was this massive form of control.
Whoop.
Yeah. Yeah. And then one other thing I wanted to bring up was the patriarchal blessing. So often the temple was mentioned inside the blessing as part of the path, but it was just a blip. It was just like, and then you'll get married in the temple. And so when you receive the blessing at 14 or 16 or however old you are, and you're just like, I can't wait. That's the highest place on heaven where I get to meet God. And then you go there and you're witnessing what's happening. And it's no longer just a blip on your path. It's a, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
What is this? And really, this is God's best most inspired, most, I don't know. I don't even have the words.
This is the best plan God could come up with.
Yeah. So let me bring up so I was using ChatGPT yesterday, and I'm just really trying to understand what I was raised into from a belief system perspective. And could I kind of strip out all the doctrine and just come up with a metaphor, a story that has some parallels to what the plan of salvation um, meant or was taught? Like, can I strip all the dogma and the religion out of it and just tell a story and see how it lands in the body of somebody hearing the story?
Love it.
So let's see. I was sent to Indiana, a place I didn't choose with no memory of where I came from. When I arrived, I was handed a uniform. I was told it was required, that I needed to keep it clean and modest and under control at all times. Sometimes I liked how it felt, but I quickly learned that enjoying the uniform too much was dangerous. If it felt good, I was probably doing something wrong. Then I was given a job. I didn't apply for it. I didn't even know I wanted it, but I was told it was a privilege, that only a select few were chosen to work for this company, that I should be grateful, and that I should give it everything I have. There was a manager. He was the voice of authority, and the job was simple: obey, produce, don't ask questions, and stay loyal. And I was told if I did this faithfully my entire life, I'd be paid after I die. Not now, not during the work, only later, maybe. But the job wasn't just about working. I was told my real purpose in Indiana was to recruit, to tell others about the company, to remind them that this was the only good company, that all the others were dangerous or broken or false. If someone worked for a different company, they were lost and I was supposed to help fix them. So I learned to judge, to smile politely, while quietly sorting people into categories, one of us or not one of us. I didn't see humans anymore. I saw potential hires or cautionary tales. And what it's like to live this way. I show up to work every day. I try to be good. I try to follow the rules. I don't really know if I want to be here. I've never stopped to ask what I actually enjoy. I've been too busy trying to be worthy of the job I was told I should want. When I feel things stir in me, curiosity, desire, longing, I question myself instead of listening. I wonder if I'm falling behind, if I'm being selfish, if I'm disappointing the manager. I'm praised for loyalty, but inside I feel numb. I don't know what I love. I don't know what I dream about. I just know how to perform.
Wow, that brought up a lot of emotion for me. It feels ragey,
Mm-hmm.
like really down at the base of my spine, like right at, well, I'll call it the root chakra. And I've been trained in understanding energy psychology. So I've used the chakras as a map of development. And right there at the root is everything that we feel the right to be on the planet, to be supported, and to be loved. And it feels like at a very young age, even possibly in the blessing, we then are blessed to be members of the church, even though baptism is really our true membership. But we're on the records of the church and we belong to the church.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like we are severed from our own longing. We are disconnected from what we want and told what we want. And to deviate from that, the consequences are what we've already spoken about. And so when you leave, and I deal with this with 100% of my clients, I don't know what I want.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I haven't been given permission to access a room in my own psyche
Mm-hmm.
that would reveal to me what I want, because I have been taught my whole life that what I want doesn't matter. All I want is what God wants for me. And what God wants for me is determined by the doctrines of the church, by the prophets, by leaders, and by everybody else except me.
Mm.
And so it's almost like you have to, in coaching, it's like rerouting and plugging them back into the first 8 cells of their very creation.
Mm.
my right to choose for me without the coercive narratives about what will happen if I choose wrong. And that I felt that when you were explaining that whole thing about Indiana, like where am I? What am I doing? I don't remember choosing any of this. And I don't know, there's so much we can talk about that, but all of that are forms of self-abandonment and disconnect and severance from the body that will tell you what lights you up, what brings you joy, what is expansive, what is beautiful, what is curious. That is a whole different realm in your body that has kind of been suppressed,
Mm-hmm.
that we light up with a hymn, because the rest of the congregation is singing it, and we are supposed to be obedient and compliant to this pathway. And so we have almost these synthetic feelings inside
Mm-hmm. Programmed.
that mimic joy.
Yep. The counterfeit.
And I can't tell you how many times people say, "Are you happy?" Yes, I am happy. I am living the gospel. Of course, I'm happy. And if I'm honest with myself, and now I look back, I'm in constant trauma because I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like I'm failing as a mother. I'm doing all these things, but I'll be damned if I was going to let you know, no, I'm not happy. I'm scared all the time. I'm living the anxiety. I'm not sleeping at night. I don't know what to do next. I'm not happy.
Mm-hmm.
This cannot be happiness. But I'm told that that's happiness. And so I'm like, that must be happy. That's happy.
Mm.
Okay. Easy.
What's the FOG acronym that you told me?
Whenever you are being conditioned with fear, obligation, guilt, and I'll add shame. I also add in there, your compassion is being exploited,
Mm.
then you're being manipulated for the purpose of control.
Mm.
You would never use those strategies, fear, obligation, guilt, shame, and exploitation of my compassion, as an act of love,
Mm.
because love needs no coercion. Love needs no manipulation.
So I use ChatGPT a bunch to
Love it.
uncover what's inside of me because it's so interwoven into my psyche and my body, and it's not clear, it's confusing. And so I'll type in and I'll just be like, yeah, this pattern's showing up in my life in this relationship, or and it's like, well, it sounds like you were raised in a home or system, whatever, culture where love was conditional. And that's
Mhm.
come up throughout because I'm going to go back through all of my chats and I'm going to have ChatGPT summarize for me all of my interactions, and I'll be like, okay, and that's a primary piece, that love is conditional based on obedience. I was like, well, yeah, isn't that normal? It feels so normal.
You've got to earn it.
Yeah. Yeah, and my dad, like I love my dad so much and feel like he was such a good dad, and I can see that 7 generations of this masculine programming impacted my childhood
Sure.
because he used the same language that grandpa taught my dad and great grandpa, it's just passed down. And so there's been a lot of anger towards my dad, and I was like, wait a second, he was raised in the same thing when he was little
Yeah.
and just is doing the same thing based on that. And so just naming that it is so interwoven into family lines. And from that place, can we have compassion for our parents and understanding? because I can feel my dad's heart and I know he's
Yeah.
such a beautiful man. And the way he raised me, there's so many ways I'm just angry. I'm like,
Mhm.
that's not how I needed it. That's not, I would have been, I needed it this way. I needed it this way. And he's never experienced it. And so how could he raise me any different?
Yeah.
So I asked ChatGPT about self-abandonment. And then I said, how does this impact a person in adulthood after leaving?
Mm.
Because this is just good if we can have like a checklist. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I deal with that. I thought it was just my personality. But to understand, it's like, no, if you were baked into the culture, it's on the school bus, it's on the playground. It's our teachers were Mormons if you grow up in Utah.
Hmm.
It's the Relief Society comes over. And what's so tricky about it is the humans have a smile on their face while they're delivering the message. And so it feels really loving. It's like, oh my gosh, I
Hmm.
love Sister Nelson. She always gives me a hug and she always like pinches my cheek. There's so much love exuding out of her, but she's passing on the conditioning and the doctrine through her smile, through her words, right? While smiling.
Hmm. Wow. So you're given visual feedback while you're being told how proud we are that you're following God's plan, that you're choosing to get baptized, and that you're doing this. And I'm so proud of you, Josh. Of course, you're going. What 8-year-old does not want to please their teachers and their parents? And it's never going to occur to them that they could feel in their body and say, you know what? I think I need to wait until I've studied and researched other religions before I make the choice to go into this covenant with God.
Can I have access to the people that have left and the anti? Because I'd like to hear both sides and then make a choice.
Yeah, I need to study more religions, and I need to grow up enough to know the difference between coercion and inspiration.
Oh.
And I think I'm just going to pass on that. Thank you. Nope, that's not an option.
I'll postpone this decision.
And what 8-year-old? And 8-year-olds aren't even they're not interested in religion at all, but they're being coerced into choosing a path. They're interested in playing with their friends and kicking the ball and dancing in the mirror they are not in this place to say, okay, I think I need to choose my spiritual path now. It's time for me to do extensive research so I know what's right for me.
So they are being hired for the Indiana job
Hmm.
at 8.
Yeah. And then the recruitment at 18.
Yep.
That is the mission the Lord has called you to. But you should only go if you know it's right for you. But there's no other place for an 18, 19, 20-year-old young man other than the shame corner over there. And for all the women, possible women that might want to date him, yeah, that's not going to happen because she's looking for a return missionary. And so, of course, you want to go on a mission and not disappoint your parents and not disappoint God. And inside your body is probably just raging in this. I really just want to go to college.
Mm.
I want to honor my basketball scholarship. I really just want to go explore. We don't access any of that of what you really want to do right now. It's that how can I get myself to want to go on a mission? Because that's the right thing for me to want.
So now you're coercing yourself.
Yes, the gaslighting yourself.
Yeah.
This is how it's supposed to be. We're going to ignore what's real for you and convince yourself that you need to be happy about a different story.
So if we pause here once more and we just invite the listeners, the viewers to check in with the body, because it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's so much.
I'm sorry, I probably fire hosed. I'm so passionate about self-abandonment and
Yeah.
reclaiming your power.
Yeah. It's just so much to discover what the hell it is. What is it? So I'll go over the list here of what it looks like in adulthood. And it can
Mhm.
be, if you're still in the church, it's still going to be here. But we really like the idea of you leave the church, but the church still lives inside you.
Yeah.
And this is the ways that it does that. So the self-abandonment learned in Mormonism often shows up in adulthood as a chronic disconnect from the self, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and can manifest in subtle but deeply impactful ways, especially after leaving the church. So number one, difficulty trusting yourself. You may second guess your intuition, your desires, your decisions, feeling like someone else must know better. There's often a deep fear of getting it wrong or being led astray, even years after leaving the faith. This can paralyze decision making or lead to outsourcing authority to partners, coaches, or spiritual leaders. Anything you want to say about that?
Um, though those are some of the main things that I focus on in my coaching right there. So that's right at the core and at a course that aligns with self-abandonment.
Disconnect from the self.
Yeah.
So self trust. Okay, so number two is chronic people pleasing and approval seeking. Since belonging was once tied to obedience and performance, many ex Mormons struggle with boundaries, fearing rejection, or disconnection if they show their full truth. There's often an unconscious drive to be good, agreeable, or emotionally low maintenance, even at the cost of self expression. This has been massive for me. So massive. And even doing this podcast, I can feel my body just like all this fear that's like, you're not going to release these though, right? You can talk about it, but don't ever upload them anywhere because it's the fear of rejection and wanting to just fit in, be agreeable, be good, not rock the boat, stay in the boat. And so it's like alive inside me. And I've been out 6 years and I've done a shit ton of work too. So what do you got on that one?
Um, so all of those too, especially about boundaries. Not only was my family life very enmeshed, like we just knew way too much than we should have, but church life is so enmeshed. There are no boundaries. You're as a church member, it's almost ingrained in you to be entitled to inquire
Mm-hmm.
about people's underwear,
Mm-hmm.
to st to stop by their house at any given moment just because you're in town and you had a prompting, to tell people what it is they need to do in their life because you had a prompting, to go into the bishop and to be told what it is by your bishop, what it is the Lord wants for you to do. There is no boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And when you try to put up boundaries, you're called, faithless and you have
Self-worth.
doubt.
Yeah.
And so the being low maintenance, there's something just so virtuous and benevolent and holy about not needing anything,
Mm-hmm.
about being the child that's not the squeaky wheel,
Mm-hmm.
about helping your mom. And I know this is environmental. It's a program that I onboarded at Young, and it's also in Preston and church paradigm to be agreeable, to fit in, to wear the tie when you're passing the sacrament, because
Mm-hmm.
that's what the Lord wants. Even though it's choking you, you don't like ties. You don't wear button-up shirts because you don't like them. And my feet hurt in these old shoes that were passed down by my brother. They're just be agreeable. Just be agreeable, low maintenance, and do not express your true feelings in gospel doctrine. All of that, environmental, cultural.
Yeah. So number three, suppressed anger and grief. So emotions like rage, grief, and even desire were often seen as dangerous or unrighteous. Adults may feel numb, disconnected from their bodies, or terrified to feel deeply, especially in front of others. These suppressed emotions can lead to anxiety, depression, autoimmune type symptoms if they're not addressed.
Yeah, so afraid to feel your feelings or even own your own feelings. Because in my mind, it was these negative emotions that I have are coming from the devil.
Yep.
And so I need to bypass, suppress, get rid of them. Whatever you do, don't feel them, don't own them. And then these good feelings that I have, it's coming from the Lord. It's coming because of my righteousness. It's coming because of my obedience. And I don't want those good feelings to go away. And so I always give credit to some external source for them because they can't possibly be mine. I didn't deserve them. I didn't generate them. And that's one thing in the integration process of somebody who is in therapy is being able to own their feelings. And part of that comes from a lot of the work that we're supporting, and that is feeling it in the body.
Mm-hmm.
What do I feel inside? Do I get to feel my feelings? How do I feel my feelings? How do I own my feelings? What do I do with my feelings?
Yeah, I think the this thoughts come through a couple times as you've been talking. It's the idea of like a presentation, like a mask.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you were talking about if I'm feeling depressed, but I'm doing my scripture study and I'm doing my family home evening, and now there's like a disconnect because I'm doing the things that are supposed to bring me joy, but I feel like shit inside, then I have to present to others that I'm happy, that I'm okay. Because otherwise, if I'm not okay, then in what ways am I sinning?
Yeah. Yeah. It's very disconnected and very psychologically um, tangled. So very tangled. To lose direct access to our intuition, it's like a virus
Mm,
that's traveling through us that we don't even know that we have. It's like corrupt files in a computer that eventually is going to cause the whole thing to crash. But it's going undetected. You don't know that it's in there.
mm.
So curious.
Okay, next on the list, overdeveloped inner critic. The church's emphasis, the church's emphasis on self-improvement, worthiness, and sin tracking often creates a harsh internal voice that constantly monitors and critiques. After leaving, that voice may still be active, shaming you for how you show up, what you feel, or how slow you're healing.
Yeah. Well, and we get this all wrapped up into one word that's embedded over and over and over again is repent.
Mm,
Repent. So every time at night, repetitively, you lay down or you sit on your knees at the bedside saying your prayers. And I was taught and trained to think of all the things I needed to repent of that day. And so I conditioned my brain to scan across my day and see what wasn't, what could have been better.
mm,
And same thing in the sacrament, when you're sitting in the pews and it's all quiet and you're going to take the sacrament, how could I do better this week?
mhm,
What have I done that, I wasn't quite up to par? And then you have this checklist of expectations that are like impossible.
mm,
They really are impossible. The expectations in the church for an optimal member, it's not humanly healthy for anyone. But overdeveloped inner critic, I still deal with that to this day. And she's vicious.
mm, mhm,
And when that inner critic is overdeveloped, it's critical of other people.
mhm. Yep.
And that is why one thing that I am so grateful after leaving is that I've learned to accept people where they are and just notice that they get to be themselves and express themselves. And if they're being weird, rude, or mean or whatever, it's because there's something inside of them that's hurt. Not that they're sinful or they're, listening to the devil or it's just the other reasoning that was going on in my LDS world is not the lens in which I see now. I'm able to just accept them for who they are rather than the fact that I see their cleavage or they have too many tattoos or they use foul language or that matters to me anymore.
Yeah, I was thinking about what you said with the sacrament sitting there, because that, I don't know if it was my favorite part of church, was to really ponder and reflect on ways that I can improve. And so I saw it as a good thing. And now that I'm out, I also recognize how the brain works. We talked about this last time with the repetition. So now I'm training my brain to scan and look for problems.
Mhm.
And so now that shows up inside me, but now it's going to kick in my amygdala, which is the fight or flight response, right? And now I'm scanning the news, I'm scanning Facebook, and now my filter, my lens, the way I view the world is from this place of what's wrong, what could change, what needs fixed, instead of the opposite of what's beautiful and what's
Mhm.
magical. And before we started recording, you shared that you put celebrate on your mirror.
Yes.
And I thought about that. What if during the sacrament we were making lists of ways that we did so fucking good that week,
Yes.
starting to train our brain to look for the ways that we're human and messy and beautiful and delightful, and in what ways did I inspire and lift people up and lead people better, and can I train my brain to go after that? And then the dopamine that I'm chasing, it's no longer from a place of flaws and ways that I suck, but ways that I've improved the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Like how many times did I follow through with things and how many times did I, you know, connect with the earth and how many times did I there's so many beautiful things that happen throughout a week and we are literally conditioned to sit there and think what's wrong.
Mm,
And like you said, with the when you think the other way, then you got oxytocin, dopamine, you got serotonin, and just to think of all the beautiful, wonderful things has a chemical reaction in your body. And to think about everything that you've done wrong or which you still are inadequate and just don't quite measure up is like opening yourself up with a vial of cortisol
mm,
and shoving it into your body and say, here's some more stress hormone for you
mm,
because that's what God wants for you. And
mm.
here's your piece of gluten and your cran flavored water. Really anchor it in there for you.
Yeah, so you're constantly putting yourself into fight or flight
Yeah.
with those stress chemicals.
Yeah. And just constantly reminding yourself you're not quite sufficient.
Hmm.
You got to find ways to know that you're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
Or, and other people take it a different way, um, feel the love of the Savior.
Mm,
We're asked to feel the love of the Savior. I had a seminary teacher that asked me to, or he told us, and he pulled it out. It was a railroad track stake, and it was old and it was rusty. And he pulled it out of his suit pocket, and he says, "This is what I hold in my hand as I'm taking the sacrament to remind me of that sacrifice that Jesus made for me on the cross." and how much I love him for that sacrifice. And now when I think about that, I'm like, what madness are you imprinting on my psyche right now? That's actually what I need to think about. And that it would help it be more impactful for me to be able to be that. Absolutely, it's grotesque. It's a terrible thought, because for him it represented his hands being crucified to a board. Why do you want those images in your mind during the sacrament to help you be a better person? That it's so incongruent. It's counterintuitive. It's backwards.
Well, and I just want to bring forth the fact that the seminary teacher would say it from a place of love too. And so
Yeah.
it would land in the psyche as, oh, this person cares about me. He's showing up for me day after day and teaching me these beautiful doctrines and lessons of love. And then, so now he's wrapped this crucifixion message with a wrapper of love.
Mm-hmm.
So now, as you're scanning in relationships, you're looking for what has been labeled love in your
Mm-hmm.
upbringing, and it has everything to do with sacrifice and self-loathing and I owe somebody and I'm not worthy. And then if you leave the church, your body's still going to be looking for love labeled that way.
Yes.
So you're going to attract a person that treats you that way, that you owe them, that you're less than, that you there's never enough, that you like you're constantly striving, and it just feels so familiar because it
It feels like love.
feels like love.
Gross. That's gross.
It's so, yeah, that those were my relationships after. I was like, that just feels normal.
Yeah, this feels like love. Of
Mm,
course she loves me.
yeah, proof. She gave me a steak and said,
Yeah, and I'm holding it, and thank you for this steak. You must really love me.
okay, so there's a few more, three more. So, number five, spiritual disorientation. You were taught that your spiritual connection came through priesthood, ordinances, or worthiness. And once you leave, there's often a void. Rebuilding spiritual trust in your own body, intuition, or something bigger, if desired, can be a confusing, painful journey.
Mhm. Yeah, that's why a lot of ex-LDS people go to plant medicine,
Mm,
because they crave that spiritual connection.
yeah.
And unfortunately, many times, this could be a whole nother podcast, many times they they can't achieve it organically on their own without plants,
Hmm.
because they're so spiritually disoriented.
Mm.
Hmm.
Well, and it's tricky because what we were taught was that we needed a temple, we needed something in between us.
Mhm.
And a bishop got to decide if we were worthy of going to the place where we can access God. And so that programming of somebody in between, there's like, there's a doorman and he gets to decide. Like that's some of the wounding that I've uncovered is somebody outside of me gets to decide if I'm worthy or not. And I'll give it to, partners, girlfriends, friends, or I have a part inside of me that plays that role too as the judge. And it goes back to the inner critic of I'm worthy of love when. And now I've become the doorman inside of me with that judgment.
Mhm. Some of the other things that we're trained is there's a judgment day.
Mm,
In the temple, we're taught, we have signs, symbols, and tokens in order to get through the gate. we're taught that we need to go have a worthiness interview. I don't think they call them that anymore for obvious reasons, but you have to go to your bishop to be qualified for your temple recommend because he is your judge in Israel.
Hmm.
And so we are infused with this idea that there has to be an intermediary between us and the divine, and that it's something outside of us. I can't think of anything um, more damaging to a soul than to disconnect them from their source
Mm.
and tell them that that's love.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm passionate about doing this podcast. That's why I love working with post LDS people and post religious people, because a lot of these things were taught in different ways in other religions. Is because it hurts. And I have a rage inside me that motivates me to say, you deserve to be connected.
Mm.
You deserve to live a sovereign life. You deserve to believe in yourself. You deserve to be connected to your inner pathway, your own inner guidance. You deserve to evolve into the being that you were created to be, to connect to your source of creativity. You deserve to know how fucking loved you are. You deserve to know that you have permission to mess up, to grow up, or to not grow up. You just get to experience this life without all the judgment and without all the conditions and without all these silly rules and weird underwear and, you know, hats and aprons and fancy buildings. And it's not there. You're so much more. So much more.
Okay. Relationship patterns in relationships, partnerships, friendships, self abandonment can show up as merging with others to feel safe, being overly accommodating or conflict avoidant, needing others to validate your emotional reality, and struggling to express your needs, your anger, or your boundaries.
All of that becomes really stagnant in the body, right? Needing to feel safe, going along to get along, or getting along, going along to get along. I get conflict avoidant. That's like no contention. That's straight from the devil, right?
Yep.
So it's better to swallow what it needs to be said than to express it and risk conflict.
Yep.
That happens in marriages so often. It can happen, especially in mixed faith marriages where people uh, are dealing with one of their spouses are still believing. And so they're mapping onto the programming where this other one is trying to navigate a new way to operate in the world. And they don't usually have the language to express it and what's going on for them. They're not even sure yet. How do I find that inner validation? How do I address conflict? I don't have the language and the tools to communicate and navigate conflict. I don't know how to feel safety within myself. And so it looks like they're in chaos, right?
Mm-hmm.
And confusion, which they absolutely are, but it is the next step before they find it. And here is this partner who's solid and firm in the gospel, using the old ways, saying, well, I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably in confusion because you're not living the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably in confusion because the devil is influencing you. You're in confusion, and they validate their bias. They validate it saying, see, you shouldn't have left because look at this state that you're in right now. I'm fine. I'm living the gospel. I'm concerned about you, so I'm going to use coercion and guilt, the fogs, fear, obligation, shame, and guilt, and I'm going to extort your compassion
Mm-hmm.
because that's what love is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine. And now you have more doubt over here as you're in this reckless abandon.
Mm.
Going, where
Yeah,
am I? What am I supposed to do? I'm completely disoriented. I don't know how to ground into myself. And it looks like a mess because it is.
it is a mess.
It is a mess. It's supposed to be a mess. There is nobody that hops from this deep complex programming and hops on over and say, oh, the church is just a mess. I don't need to follow that. And they just start on this programming, this awesome pathway. It didn't hurt me, didn't touch me. Oh, yes, it did. It's visceral. It's in your body. It's in your bones. It's in your cells and your tissues, your organs and glands. Because your body's been programmed to that system.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm sure.
Interesting.
We'll have many podcasts on relationships.
Yes.
There's a lot. Okay, last one. Fear of being too much or not enough. Mormonism is a narrow mold for what is acceptable, especially for women and men in gendered roles. If you were too emotional, too ambitious, too loud, too sensual, too sensitive, you learn to suppress those parts. As an adult, these parts still carry shame and often need active reclamation and integration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they need to be expressed in order to find your true authenticity. And finding your true authenticity, I will say, returning back to the title of, of this conversation, is resolving your self-abandonment,
Mm,
is finding your true authenticity. Where is my origins? Where is my true essence? And where is that new set point that's really me? And feeling like you're too much or not enough, or feeling like you've got to do it a certain way in order to have approval and acceptance. All of that interferes with your ability to feel that authenticity. And one of the things that I remind my clients is that you can trust yourself. In fact, this is the new starting point where you can start to trust yourself. You're not following your ego. You're not being deceived because your ego is the one that wants you to be safe and powerful, exclusive, special, um, provided for, included. That's your ego. And when you're making this decision, you're risking losing all of that.
mm-hmm,
You, powerful, courageous soul that you are, were willing to risk losing relationships, risk losing your identity, risk losing your community, your worldview, risk losing your pathway, your connections, your closest relationships, your children, your spouse, your siblings, your parents, in order to stop betraying yourself,
mm,
in order to stop abandoning you. Finally, you can lean into trusting yourself.
mm.
And it's scary. It's so scary. Can I be trusted? Am I even qualified to trust myself?
Hmm.
Am I going to run myself into the ground, straight into the arms of Satan? Am I going to have this drink of alcohol and soon I'm going to be pimping people out on cocaine in the streets of that's literally those are the images that we have in our mind. If you don't follow the gospel path, you will be sent into the pits of destruction. Just interesting.
Yeah.
It's been done to us.
Yeah. I like, so the image that I get when I think about like an authentic expression of somebody is like a star burst or like a starfish. And as a Mormon, I was like only one of my legs was fully developed.
Love it.
I had these little nubs, and this was my sexuality, and this was my
Ah,
ability to express, to say fuck. Um, to make choices for myself, whether I want tattoos or whether I want to have sex or whether I want to drink, like checking in with me or connecting to my body, to my pleasure, to my voice, to speaking. So all of these suppressed little nubs get to be identified by the person
Yeah.
and discovered and explored, and then you get to make a choice. Like, okay, this is how I was taught, but is that true for me? And
Yeah.
so one of my tattoos actually says I decide. And it's a
Mhm.
reminder every single day how much I've outsourced all of the life decisions. And I have to come back to me and I'm like, what the fuck do I want? I
Mhm.
decide. And so I've had to develop the little nub into this, and it's a muscle that you have to grow. And it's this decision of choice. That's the agency, right? That's choice,
Yeah.
not the program choice, but the no. I'm an adult, and now I get to decide.
And trusting that the results of every decision you make are sufficient for your own training and growth.
Hmm.
You don't need to have some desperate, dreadful storyline to get you to follow your path. It's like, okay, so I'm choosing to drink, and then you drink, and you're like, okay, I think I'm drinking too much. I think that I'm trying to suppress something. And then you go deep into that place, get some healing, and you get right back into balance. But you own it.
Hmm.
You own it. Okay, I think I want to dress sexy because I was so suppressed in my clothing. So I'm going to wear this, I'm going to wear that. Oh, I'm noticing the impact it has on my social life. I'm noticing the kind of people I'm starting to attract. That result is sufficient for you to re-gauge and recalibrate how you really do want to present yourself. You get to decide by natural consequences. It's a novel idea.
Hmm.
Interesting.
So to wrap up, we love to finish with what to do with all this. So we just fire hosed information. We love to bring awareness, and then we love to share ways that it shows up in adulthood. And now, what do we do with this information? Like, if you can, whatever you want to share on now what?
My first thing that I have my clients do, and it's discovering what you want. Okay, so I didn't have a list of what I was going to do here, so it's just coming in right
Yeah,
now.
cool.
But it's usually about feeling it in your body, and it's like, how can I find my pathway of truth that feels right for me? And what has worked best for me is knowing what it feels like in my body is expansive.
Mm,
What does expansive feel? Is it inclusive? Does it work for like, is it inclusive of everybody? Everybody can do it and everybody can experience something similar. Everyone's included. Is it cause me to be curious? Does it generate more questions? Usually, if it generates more questions, that means I'm in a space of expansion. Is it beautiful to me? Does it create beauty? Um, is it honoring to other people? Sometimes that can get confusing in that we're trained to be responsible for other people's emotions, right? And
hmm.
we can see that some of the choices and decisions we made because they're contrary to what we were taught growing up, that people are going to have an adverse reaction to it. They are not going to be happy with our choices. Um, so the big question is, am I happy with the choice?
Hmm.
Does this work for me? It, and not being responsible for how other people are going to feel about how I'm leading my own life. And one of the things I think is amazing, get a tattoo that says, I decide. The one that I wanted to give is like, I am enough. because I
Uh-huh.
felt so insufficient inside and so inferior.
Yeah.
So, but to do something in your life just for you that reflects who you are inside. So I have like a dragonfly tattoo. That was the first one that I had. And then I'm not like promoting you just got to go get a tattoo. That's
Right.
not me. I'm like doing something specifically for you. I started to dress in a way that I wanted to dress. And I started to really tune in to what my body is saying when I'm hearing people and communicating and interacting with people, listening to my body and noticing if they're using the fogs.
Mm.
And like there's a whole way to communicate with people when you do recognize that they're using manipulative strategies. And that was probably be for another podcast.
Yeah.
But the best thing is to know you are going to know viscerally in your body when you are saying yes to a no
Mm.
and be brave enough to say that doesn't work for me
Mm-hmm.
and honoring yourself and then feel what that feels in your body. It might feel tight at first, but then it's going to feel like you have just tapped into a dormant pocket of power inside of you
Mm.
where you just went pook and you're like, oh, suddenly I get to choose for me and not worry about how it's going to impact somebody else that you chose right for you. And so yeah, feel it in your body and then start dreaming, baby. What do I want? And sometimes people are so lost with what they want. They just know what they don't want. And that's a great place to start. Well, I don't want this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that anymore. And just start listing what you don't want until there's no more left.
Mm.
And then ask your question. So, what is it I do want? And what would be juicy and beautiful and lovely for me? And then here's the last one. What did I do as a child that lit me up that I stopped doing?
Mm.
Because being in a state of play is when our nervous system goes into rest and digest. And it's almost as if we open up a portal of creativity, new creativity, fresh innovations,
Mm.
and things that would light us up. You don't have to know the how, just start activating those dreams inside. For me, it's been dance.
Mm.
I gave up dance when I was 18 and got married. I never took a dance class, never didn't do ballroom dancing, didn't do any dancing. And so it's since I've moved to St. George that I'm like, okay, this is my chance to be just about me right now. What
Mm.
I want to do, I want to dance. And it's almost like I had to retrain my body to feel the rhythm of the music. And then I started to create more creativity with my movement and more expression. And it's fun to have like a recall of a playful childhood time. But this time I'm going to do it and be sexy because I remember my mom's like, oh, Wendy, that's too suggestive. When I'd be a little one dancing in the mirror and I'd be feeling the music and just swaying my hips, not trying to be sexy. I don't even know what sexy is at this point. But now I'm like, I'm just going to be as sexy as I want to be. I can be sexy if I want. And so do the stuff that you love. If it's mountain biking, if it's drawing, if it's something to ignite that playful space in you, will activate that childlike wonder inside of you. And that childlike wonder is going to lead you to a trail of what it is you really want.
Mm.
It will like start opening a pathway into what it is you really want.
Mm.
Because really, it can be, like you mentioned, it's confusing. It's one of the main things my clients come to me. I'm ready to go. I've got my wings. I'm ready to fly. I don't even know what I want. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I want. And I don't even believe I can have it. So,
Those are really good. I'm like taking notes. Okay. Well, I'm sure there was a lot of information, a lot of good stuff. I just want to remind people to take this stuff really slow. That
mhm.
when it lives inside the nervous system, to do like big changes it can impact the body, the nervous system. And so take the information in sips. And if at any point it feels like too much, just give yourself permission to set it aside and play. It doesn't have to be serious, heavy lifting. And so just keep coming back to it on your pace. And this is building self-trust as you're listening to your body and be like, well, I was taught to just kind of power through and go, 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 go. And what does it feel like in my body where my body says, I just need some rest, or I need a bubble bath, or I need some sunshine, or I need a hike, and just developing that connection with yourself, that healing this stuff is a lot, and to just go slow.
Yeah. I love that. I was like, take the pressure off
Mm-hmm.
and go at your own pace. There's no big rush.
Yeah.
You can go as fast as you think you should, but really deep down in the tissues and the bones, as we've been talking about, speed is not your friend.
Mm-hmm. Slow
Speed
is
is,
fast.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. Thank you everyone for joining, and we will see you next time.
yes. Bye.
Thank you for listening in. We hope there were takeaways that help you begin to unbind the deep programming that no longer serves you, and remember more of who you truly are. If you'd like to connect more deeply, come join us on Facebook on our page called Unbinding. It's a space for real conversation, reflection, and community. And if this episode resonated, please share it with someone who might need it. Like, subscribe, and comment below. We'd love to hear what's moving for you. Until next time, take care of your heart and keep unbinding.